All my life, I've tried to valorize the accident in your thinking, in your meetings every day. I give a lot of value to these obstacles. I must be a fighter somehow because I let these obstacles, these accidents coming all the time. I think it defines me pretty well.
How did you come to curating art?
I think that I never wanted to be a curator. I think it was probably like too natural for me to do things. As far as I remember, I was rearranging the objects in my surroundings in a way that I felt like they had to almost disappear. They became more like you're unconscious. And I think that my bedroom, my space, always been like this when I was young. It's the relationship between the objects together, and it's also the charge that each object, in its materiality, in its shapes, colors, I think these two levels are playing constantly together. And yes, this is how I see the role of objects. They have the way that you place them in a space. You engage with different experiences, and you have to pick your battles. What do you want to highlight? At what moment? In which space? And since you have thousands of combinations, you really have to find the story that is going to emerge. But you have to direct these relationships for the viewers. I think you really have to create a moment that is unique, that is about the force of storytelling. I really want to bring people emotionally, physically, intellectually in a relationship with the objects I'm placing together. It's never like a naive, purely intuitive, formal display. I'm really working on these relationships to engage with people.
About this story, about this storytelling, how does this story come from? Does it come from yourself?
We tend to see things from our own experiences. All viewers are coming for different reasons at different moments of their lives with different intentions. In the case of my exhibitions, I like to create moments. It's never equal, it's never the entire exhibition. There's a general concept, a general idea, a premise, and after, you need to make it happen in the space, in this specific moment. So how you can capture someone's attention, make this person dream, or this person think, or this person being engaged. So it's always like, it's a bit like having a family of screaming birds. So you really have to try to manage the noises between these objects together, because putting them together in a new space, different configuration, is going to create a new experience, and you are responsible for that. So this is how I like to, it's the part that I prefer to do in my work as a curator. It's definitely the exhibition making with the real objects in the space.
To see something within a story.
Yes and no. You can create a story, a general premise to your exhibition, and some people will prefer that to be carried by an historical moment that you point out, and they are going to be guided, and they will read the objects across or through that narrative. But you have the forces of the object itself. The object carries an entire history. There's like the unconscious of the object. There's the shapes that are going to speak to certain people more than others. And it's
magnetism, something like this?
I think it's like the memory of each object. There's a maker on the back of this object, someone who thought about making this object to make this object alive and play its full role. So I believe that it's not just a magnetism that is based on emotional reactions, or it's mainly like the object traveled through times, its evocation, its memories, its shapes, and its symbolism is coming from generations and generations of creators who carried subjects, topics, combinations of forms and shapes over centuries. And this is not something you can necessarily like intellectualize. This is something that is going to speak to you, and you will make something out of it. You will come back home, speak about this relationship to your children, or you will speak to other artists. You need to see this show. I've seen something that really like talk to the present.
So you need to put word on an experience that is without any word.
In the exhibition space, we tend to put words on experiences, and I think it's part of the success of an exhibition to be able to translate it in words. I think that our critics like Roberta Smith or others have this very skilled capacity to absorb and translate with our vast experience of seeing exhibitions and a larger view of art history and its legacy. They're able to extract the content of an exhibition. However, there are things that are not transferable with words, and I think that when you have reactions from viewers in an exhibition that are going to be translated, it's not going to be translated necessarily with words. It can be, if you are an artist, you are going to be influenced, you are going to feed yourself in a way that it's going to be useful or necessary for the further steps you will engage in creation. So it has a contagious, I would say, component that is not just transferable with words, but by actions. And it's the power of objects. This is their legacy and how they are able to transform the real. One of the values of an exhibition is its capacity to talk to the present. And when you are a curator, you are not just in your mind. You really need to question many times why you do an exhibition, why it talks to people, how you can anchor your thinking, your studies into the now, why it talks to me, because it's always like the process is like why I want to do this exhibition, and you have to question and re-question yourself and never like jump on the first idea that comes to you. You really have to make the best choice, but also to challenge yourself about your intentions.
Can we take an example?
For instance, there's an exhibition that I really particularly loved to work on that is titled When the Curtain Never Comes Down. This is an exhibition that showed and displayed mainly works by performer artists affiliated to Art Brut, outsider art, self-taught artists, internationally, from different generations, different cultures. Why I felt that exhibition was particularly resonant to the present is I was questioning how my field of expertise was evolving. I was finding an opportunity to relate to what we are aware of in our field, what has been collected, what is shown in our museums are obviously objects that have been conserved, that have been collected and over the years passed through collectors to museums, and you built like a recognition. However, there are so many things that escape that format. All the oral practices, performances, works by women, for instance, in a psychiatric hospital at the beginning of the century. The works of textile were not conserved by the psychiatrists because it was not considered a work of art. So our assumptions about what the field is today is based on the history of recognition and what has been collected and saved. But what about everything that has not been saved? So the ephemeral, the practices, the costumes, the singing, the engagement of the artist socially, how it connected with the others, how this message has been carried out by a person. So what I did is like I mainly focus on archival documents during the first steps of my research. And some were so transporting and so powerful. it's going to open up an entire world of practices.
Could you curate an exhibition about something you don't like?
I'm not functioning like what I don't like and what I like. I'm not afraid of conflicts. I'm not afraid of being challenged. I'm not afraid of, to explore the different possibilities of objects and relationships. And I think that in that way, I would not be opposed, or I would be even willing to work with obstacles and constraints because they are so powerful by itself, and they are so deranging that it carries necessarily something that has to be resolved. And what a better place to resolve things, at least to expose things, than an exhibition space, which is a fictional space. We are not going to an exhibition to read the truth.
In a fictional space. Tell me why.
Yeah, a museum offers a fictional space. We don't build, one reality or one supreme truth. We are exposing different possibilities and different truth. There's no supreme message that should be read as the one that people will need to ingest and re-talked about. I like the idea of tours in museums, but I always also personally like to let the objects guide my visits. So I like these different opportunities you have when you see an exhibition, that you can be guided, but you can also let yourself being attracted by an object or two, and that's enough. You don't need to force yourself to follow a path to have a meaningful experience. It can be just one or two objects. And I think people ask themselves a bit too much. They feel like they really need to understand the whole thing. They need to see all the artworks, and they need to process it in a way that should be understood by everybody. I think we should offer multiple options, and I always think about it when I'm preparing my exhibitions.
Can you judge quality in a separate way from your own taste?
I think that what is magnificent with objects, it's like they have multiple lives, and I would say like they are objects that have not been conserved 50 years ago by the mainstream art museums, but by this sole believer of an object. And 50 years later, this object is going to have its moment. And it's the reason why I think that the question of quality is a constantly changing factor. What is quality for me and for you is also a changing factor. It's a question of values, and these values are not stable. My museum, the American Folk Art Museum, who has been founded in 1961, is known for its collection from the 18th century folk art, traditional folk art, up to recent discoveries in the 21st century by self-taught artists. And I see this collection as a collection of treasures, objects that were from the common man, objects that have been rejected by the mainstream, objects that had no significance for most people, and over time, they gain in weight because they talk to future generations. And I think that it's the reason why the quality is based on how you can reveal from an object, how can you make made up as a story, how you relate this object to a group of other elements from material culture, but something larger than material culture. So I think it's really a contextual, it's cultural as well. And we are living in a global world where people are bringing their own experiences to the narrative, and I think it changes the main, the canon. We are far away from thinking that an object is finite, and I think this is the beauty of curating exhibitions. Like, you revise all the time assumptions.
We're talking about exhibiting art. What about the sound aspect of it? Are you interested in the sound design of an exhibition?
I think that if you want to multiply experiences. You need to create an exhibition that has multiple strength. Either it's with the sound experience, the visual experience, but also you can have other moments where you can read, and you can have this more like the cocoon moment where you are isolated with an object, and the object is having it's like more like a one-to-one relationship. So you can engage on different levels and offer these different levels to the viewers. And I think the sound is certainly like a very powerful moment, because when you are connected in a space with a soundtrack, you tend to be more immaterial yourself. You forget your own physicality. And so when you forget that physicality, you enter in a different connection with the object you look at. And so that's very interesting to be able to offer these moments where you complete the disconnection, because I feel like often successful exhibitions for me have been the ones where I felt I was literally flying in the space from one piece to another. This kind of capacity to almost become one with that space and not just feel all the time grounded or being in a kind of a forced relationship you need to have with the object. You need to read the label, otherwise you don't get it. I don't like this dominant feeling. However, I mean, it's inevitable that it's not going to be successful all along, but at least if you are conscious that you can offer or multiply these different sensibilities, I think it's going to be more successful.
About writing, does writing help you to delve into your experience of art?
Yes, I feel like the exercise of being concise, transmit a message that is clear, try to extract the juice from something to create a narrative that is coherent. I think it's always part of a good exhibition to be able to have this story aside the exhibition and to leave a trace of your exhibition is going to be dismantled like 3 months later. And it's always very important to immortalize it in a publication. At least it's going to have its life after the show ends. However, it's another project. I always feel like writing a book, it's already like another exhibition. It's an idea aside the main idea. It's
a complement.
Yeah, it's a complement of the fictional space, the zone that you have created physically in the exhibition space. The book is also an occasion to reflect on a subject or on a topic involving other writers as well. I always felt like that exhibitions are much more interesting to do with others than being a solitary experience. So I always like to share this experience right up front with other colleagues, writers, put like a seed in their mind about an idea and see how they are going to expand from that idea, this original idea, and bring it to a different territory. So I think it's fundamental for the exhibition to find its different possibilities to materialize it in a book.
I'm gonna leave the space. Please hold the microphone and add whatever you want to the interview.
No. Oh, you leave? He's leaving me. It's always important to keep our eyes open, to pursue new discoveries, but also to expand our research about all these practices that have been lost in translation. Go back to archives, speak with people who have the knowledge, try to listen to new creators in the field, and expand in different countries and different social contexts to capture what is in the making in the present.